All right. Well, once again, we want to thank everyone for joining us today for DynaTrain. It's a training service that's sponsored by Dynamark. Dynamark is one of the fastest growing central stations in America. My name is Hank Groff, Senior Vice President of Sales and Business Development here at Dynamark. And we're excited that you've joined us to hear a little bit more from as far as a business strategy that can help you improve your business, grow your business. First of all, as I said, you're going to sit back today. If you haven't got your cup of coffee, do it now, because this one is going to be worth hearing more as we go ahead and take it to the next level. I want to introduce to you our presenters today. First of all, Mr. Robert Few from the Connection Exchange. Robert, are you there?
I'm here.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us today. And Mr. Kirk McDowell from MacGuard Security Advisors. Kirk, are you there? Kirk may have not joined us yet. I know that he had a little trouble chiming in, but hopefully he'll be joining us in a moment. I think that today is going to be exciting, and those of you who take notes, make sure you got your pad of paper, write this down. What Robert and Kirk will be going over today is looking back at 2009 to get your house in order. And I think this is a fantastic leadership development goal setting service that will be helping you get ready for the 2020 year. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to Robert. Robert, thanks for joining us.
Great. Thank you, Hank, and thanks, Dynamark, for allowing us this opportunity to connect with your dealers and hopefully help some people navigate the road ahead. Jonathan, you want to kind of push that slide forward? So Kirk is trying to get on the bridge. He'll get here eventually, I'm sure. But a little bit about us. I run a company called the Connection Exchange. It's an executive management consulting company that works with the alarm industry. Kirk and I both work with alarm integrators, big and small, helping them do things like get into the business, improve their business, and get out. A true cradle-to-grave experience. Kirk and I both run independent companies, but we often come together and work together on different projects to help bring the best of both worlds to each customer that we touch. I've been in this industry for about 25 years, probably a little bit more. I've worked in the central station side most of my life, and also helped Time Warner Cable get into the security industry. I have been very active and vocal in the alarm associations of the security industry to help improve things like mentorship programs and rising leader programs, and help, if you are members of ESA, you'll see a dealer toolkit available to you. I helped design that as well. All my life, I've been working with alarm companies to help them get bigger, stronger, and faster. When you grow up in a monitoring world like Dynamark, you are their only revenue stream. So it's in their best interest, and any monitoring company's interest, to put as many resources and tools in front of you to make your business succeed. Because without you, they can't succeed. It's like for an alarm integrator, without a customer, you can't succeed. So you have to continually bring new products and services to your customers. Kirk McDowell, he's been in this industry just as long, probably longer. You can see our pictures. It looks a lot longer than I have. He started with the LA Sheriff's Department, spent a lot of time in law enforcement. He's been in electronic security for 40 years. He's owned alarm companies. He's bought and sold alarm companies. Most recently, he was a big part of alarm.com. So Kirk has worked on both sides, the service to the customer and the service to the alarm dealer, and he brings a whole lot of experience when it comes to that. Together, we bring our clients the best of both worlds, and if we find an issue that we cannot help you with, we bring people in, because that's the whole side of the Connection Exchange. Today, we're going to be talking, Jonathan, you can go forward. Today, we're going to talk about a couple things. It's, getting ready for next year. Making sure that 2020 is your best year ever. In order to do that, we need to do a few things. We need to look back at this year and sometimes further back and figure out where we are. How are you going to finish this year out? If you don't have a starting point, it's really hard to set up goals for next year. I know when I started my consulting business a few years ago, I I had goals. And, you know, under each of those goals, there wasn't anything. And obviously I missed my goals because I didn't have what I needed to attack those goals from all sides and truly bring that, bring all the support and resources underneath those goals to fruition. So I want to talk a little bit about that today. So the first thing is, where are we today? You know, as a company, how many installs did you do this year? How much service revenue have you enjoyed? What's your RMR? These are all things that will kind of set up the health of your business. So you want to make sure that, you know, when you look at the health of your business, it's much more than how many installs and how much service revenue. It's the health of the entire company, the employees, the retention of your employees, the retention of your customers are hand in hand. So when you start to kind of draw this out, you want to look at what your total RMR is. Are you a residential person, a commercial, video, other, PERS? Are you everything? You know, what's the average tenure of your employees? What KPIs are you measuring? You know, it's not just about, for alarm dealers, it's not just about, you know, how many installs you did this year. It's much more about how many did you retain from last year. What are your service intervals? How many service calls are you doing a month? You know, what's the ratio between service calls and total accounts? You have to understand what you measure, what makes you successful, and then taking that and starting to develop a business plan for 2020. Sorry, we got a little feedback.
Hey, Robert.
Hey, Kirk, welcome.
Hey, thanks very much. Hank had to join me in for some reason. It's not working, so thank you, my friend, for my introduction. Appreciate it.
You bet. So, Kirk, we're just talking about how to finish 2019, and did you want to add anything to this slide?
Listen, I think I was listening. I couldn't speak. I think you did that on purpose, Robert. I'll tell you, hindsight is great, right? But we can't dwell on that. We really have to take lessons learned in 2019. A lot of changes in the industry, as we all know on this call, and then take that and do your strategy and goal setting for 2020. So no, I think you covered that well. I think we've seen a lot of changes in Q3, and we'll see in Q4 this year.
Great. All right, Jonathan, we can move forward. So looking forward, you know, kind of an overall guide to goal setting in 2020. You may have heard, may not have heard of SMART goals and what makes up a SMART goal. SMART goals are good because it allows you to cut out a lot of the noise. When I think about, you know, goals, you know, I like to expand my business by X amount of clients. I like to, you know, go on vacation. I'd like to start college funds for my children. All these different things are kind of long-range goals. How are you going to set up 2020? What makes sense for you? Is it onboarding a new panel manufacturer? Are you caught up in the Interlogix demise? Are you going to start offering video? Are you going to start offering two-way voice? You know, Dynamark supports you in all these different ways. Are you going to start taking advantage of those things and be able to increase the revenue for the existing customers you have? You know, are you going to go out and attack a whole new market? You have to figure out where you want to be, and then you need to set goals against that. SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So it's one thing for me to say, hey, I want to start a college fund for my children. I've got 3 children with 1 on the way. So that's very vague. Yes, it's something I need to do. Everybody will tell you that you have to have that, and I'm already behind. But what am I going to do? Is it setting this much money aside by, you know, December 31st of 2020? Is it making sure that I've got all the instruments available to me reviewed and ready to go? It's got to be time-bound, relevant. And I'm going backwards for a reason. Relevant. If you sit down with your team today and say, all right, what are our goals? you know what your long-range goals are for your company, right? For most of us in the security industry, our long-range goal is to grow as large as we can with revenue so that at some point we can either transition that to the next generation or we can sell that and that becomes our 401k. So is it relevant to the long-range goals? If it doesn't support the long-range goal, then it shouldn't be one of your goals. Is it achievable? I could say, I want to earn $1 million in 2020. That's probably not achievable. You know, I want to grow my business by 200%. You know, it needs to be achievable. Set your growth rate. I would say, you know, you look at it, and Kirk, I'm sorry, you just kind of told me, what's the CAGR for the security industry? Was it 6%?
Yeah, it's 6% average. You know, traditional folks, some people argue the DIY space is growing at about 15%. But
Sure.
when you and I have talked to a lot of people, we say it's between 6 to 8%.
So you say, I want to grow, you know, I'm more ambitious than the guy next door. So if the industry is growing at 6%, I want to grow at 10% next year. Okay, that's achievable. Now you have to figure out how you're going to get there. How are you going to measure your goal and measure your success? If you're talking about growth, you can set that up, and it's a lot easier to say, well, 10%. That means every quarter I got to grow at a little bit better than 2% to get to that 10%. And it needs to be specific. I want to grow my business by 10%. It's pretty specific. You are going to have a bunch of goals to support that. In order to grow your business 10%, you need to do a couple things. You need to make sure you're marketing stronger than you did this year. You're selling better. You're installing more efficiently, and you're retaining the existing customers you have. One of the biggest challenges that we see with customers is they are wide open, you know, hammer down on sales, and they're doing 300 systems a month. But nobody's watching the back door. So when they're doing 300, they're losing 150. They're only netting 150 a month. They're missing their goal. So every goal you set up will have supporting goals. Retention's a huge one. What other goals are you going to have? Do you want to improve your sales and service and operation processes? We work with customers all the time to look at, you know, inefficiencies in management. Making sure that you're using the right products and services. Make sure you're leaning on your vendors to make sure that you've got all the right training. And when you're partnered with a company like DynaMark, it's not just monitoring training. They offer you all these great tools to help improve your business. So do you want to improve your sales? Do you want to improve service, customer service? Do you want to reduce the amount of time you talk to your customers on the phone by leadership development of your leadership team? Do you want to increase your leadership abilities? You know, there's great programs out there through the associations and other companies to help define your leadership and grow that. How are you going to develop your staff to support these goals? These are all the questions you kind of have to think about when you're talking about goal setting for 2020. Kirk?
Hey, and Robert, let me tag on this. Kirk, let me just tag on for just a sec on this. Listen, I think you've hit the nail on the head here, right? But what happens a lot of times, and what Robert and I have found, is we help companies plan strategy first and goals second, right? And if you have the strategy and goals in place, then when something happens, and the most recent and relevant thing to all of us right now is the exit of Interlogix from the space, right? So a lot of people stopped and they said, you know, the sky's falling, and they're running around frantically trying to figure out what to do next, right? But if you have your strategy and your goals in place, it would simply just be an obstacle that you need to get through or around. And so it's really important when you're doing your strategy, you're doing your goals, that you have somebody else that you can share this with and get advice from. It could be Robert or I. It could be Hank at DynaMark. It could be, you know, Trey. It could be anybody that will sit down and help you kind of strategize before it occurs, okay, before. So it's always making sure that if you hit the iceberg, you're going to float and you're not going to sink.
Jonathan, we can move forward. All right, so we kind of talked a little bit about this stuff, but we've got a goal. What do we do next? We don't need to drain the whole slide. It's there for your review, but it's one thing to say that you've got a goal, but how are you going to get to that? You need to look at each of your teams. How are they tied to each goal, right? So you've got an installation team. Currently they're doing 3 installs a day, and you need to bump that to 4. You've got a sales team. They're doing this many calls a day, which is netting this many appointments, which is netting this many installs. That's all math. We just need to add to the top line of that to bring more people into the hopper. Your internal support, how much time are they spending on the phone? What other tasks do they have? How is that going to affect your goals? Do you need to bring on more staff? At what point do you do that? All these things go into that goal of increasing your RMR by 10%. The one thing that where a lot of goals are lost, and where I lost sight of my goals, a few years ago, was you get so busy, you're so caught up in the day-to-day, you're just going through the monotony of your job. I met with a dealer last week. He's a 30-year friend of mine, and he's in the exact same spot he was 5 years ago when we first started talking about growth. And he kind of said it best. He said he made himself a job, not a business. So he is constantly heads down, just taking the next service call, doing the next install, going on the next appointment, that he's never stopping to take a look at where he's at. So one thing when you start doing goal settings with yourself or with your team, and we understand that 85% of the alarm companies out there are less than 5 people. They're family businesses, just the way I was brought up, just the way Kirk was brought up. And sometimes that means stopping at the dinner table and checking in. So one thing, when you start working on goals and you're going to go through this exercise and you're going to hold yourself accountable to it, you want to make sure that you have check-ins. And I would say at least once a quarter, you need to stop, meet with your team, meet with yourself, meet with your wife, meet with your children, whoever is involved in that business, and say, where are we today? If we are only at, if we're only 20% of the way at the end of the second quarter, that means 80% to make up in the rest of the year. How are we going to achieve that goal? And it's not saying, well, we're not, scrap it. It's now we got to really focus on these few things to make sure that that goal happens. And that's one thing that Kirk and I, talk to our customers about, is we hold them accountable to the goals that we set together, and we meet on them frequently to make sure that we are checking it in, that we are measuring that goal all the time.
In every business that I've ever been involved with, I've always had a quote unquote either a mentor or a check pilot, right? Those of you that fly a lot always know that there's a pilot and a first officer, and sometimes the first officer is flying, sometimes the pilot's flying, and then a lot of times there'll be a third captain up there, and then what that person is doing a check ride. So Robert and I act as your check ride, right? We serve as your chief, what we've coined your chief outside officer, right? We help you strategize and help your team on a quarterly basis, sometimes even on a monthly basis, kind of get through the minutia and keep everybody focused. Because as Robert said, boy, it's really easy. It's really easy during the middle of the week after the installs are started and you got a couple of hours to yourself to kind of fall prey to not staying focused on what to do next, but just staying focused on getting to Friday, right? So we don't look at Friday. We look at 12 Fridays from now. And we don't beat you up, right? We're there as your ally. We're there as your friends, and we've done it. We've been there and done that, right? So for many, many years, that's how I've done it. I've always had people that I've gone to that have helped me along the way, that have mentored me along the way, and they've always been there check ride. And they've been open and honest. And I have to be and continue to try to be open and accept that as well. And that's how we position what we do through Dynamark for you guys.
Great segue, Kirk. Jonathan, next slide. So for 2020, in order to hit the goals that we set at the end of 2019, you really need to focus on leadership development. The biggest crux facing this industry is arguably skilled labor. Every alarm company that you talk to, that I've talked to, that Kirk talks to, everybody's looking for that skilled labor. And it's hard to find. Meeting I had last week, I mean, they've tried tech schools, and now you've got 3 or 4 alarm companies in the same area, almost auctioning off people coming in at tech schools, and then they're still starting, at day 0 with training them on the industry. So one thing that we've heard is people want to grow. 80% of your staff is going to want to become something more than what they walked in the door with. You're going to have a piece of your staff, that we all call lifers. We've got them in the monitoring companies and the alarm companies where, hey, I want to do this. And this is what I do every day. I get up, punch my card, I do this, I punch my card, I go home. But the rest of your staff is looking for some type of something else. They want more. It may not be just more money or more recognition or more things to do, but they want to feel that you're investing in them. One thing that we've gotten really good at is mentorship. Not just mentoring executives by us, but also helping them set up mentorship programs in their businesses. Whether it's your receptionist or your billing clerk or your installer, you want to be able to understand the challenges they're having and give them a way to learn, to grow, to develop. And sometimes that means going outside of your company. With the mentorship program that I started for ESA a few years back, it was very much a external mentorship program where we had people from alarm companies mixed up with other people who have been in the alarm industry longer in different geographical areas, so that people weren't concerned about competition or potentially poaching, those type of things. It was very successful, and we still hear from a lot of the people that went through that program, the mentors and the mentees, about how valuable that was. I had a mentee through Time Warner Cable back in 6 years ago. We still talk every month. I still help him with goal setting. He helps me with understanding, the other side. So when you think about leadership development, think about mentorship, communicating with your staff, communicating with each other, all different sorts of leadership development. It may not be something that you can offer inside. You might need to go outside, but there's programs available. We can help you find them. We can help you, start up your own. Just having those groups and that inherent knowledge that we all have, but may not be great about passing it along. So the next thing is networking for you, for your staff. Taking advantage of local associations, Dynamark events, training, peer-to-peer groups. Those are all different things that will help your business grow and succeed and keep your employees tied to you. The more you invest in them, the less likely they're going to go to the guy across the street for $5 more. Truly understanding what your internal customers, your employees value is huge. And sometimes we're afraid to have that conversation. But there's ways to have that conversation that's not going to start a whole negative revolt, so to speak, in your company. Kirk?
Yeah, no, listen, I couldn't agree more. And I think what happens, I was with a company yesterday, just flew in last night. So I was with a company yesterday, been in business longer than 20 years. I can't get into a lot of detail, but I will tell you that sat down with the owners and they indicated to me that they truly believe in ongoing mentoring, training, and education. And they said, this is a family business, and we treat everybody like family. So later in the afternoon, we got all the managers together, and I asked the owners to leave, right? And we went around the room, and I said, tell me what's great about this company. Tell me what we need to work on. Tell me about your goals, expectations, blah, 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 blah. And, of course, what are the things that are holding us back, right? And a lot of it was, naturally hiring and retaining, of employees. But one of them was somebody made a comment, said, the owners think this is a family, and we're really not a family. And all of a sudden I go, oops. He goes, but we're a community, right? A family connotates in his mind that if he needed to borrow money or he had a problem, the family would be there to take care of him, right? He goes, that's not the case. We love working here, but this is a community. Mm-hmm. If in a community, when something happens, everyone comes together. And so he said, we all come together to help the family. And I thought that was a pretty interesting point of view, right? It wasn't a family-run business. It was a community-run business. Different people, different names, different ethnicities, everyone coming together, though, to building this company. And then we started saying, okay, well, what's missing out of that community? And so where Robert and I are positioning ourselves with this company is to help them understand, the owners understand that the community is important, and we may need to look at hiring and retention a little bit differently than we had before. But again, it's coming back to leadership development, right? The staff that I met with, the senior leadership that I met with, love working for this company, and they want to be challenged, and they love the idea of a check write, right? Because it gave them the opportunity to grow within their organization. Robert and I have talked about this just in closing on this slide. We've talked a lot about this a lot. And what we really believe is that instead of owners going to employees and say, you need to go through more training, I think it starts top down, right? And that shows the rest of the team that the owners are willing to engage, they're willing to listen, they're willing to get involved in the Alarm Association, they're willing to give back, they're willing to participate and learn. And once they do that, then the rest of the team says, okay, they're doing it, we're going to follow along. So to me, it starts with, it is peer-to-peer training, but it starts at the top and comes down, and that's what Robert and I can help do.
Great. Thanks, Kirk. So just kind of summing it up, not to make this too much of a sales pitch, but here's a list of all of the high-level areas that Kirk and I support through our customers today. We've really wanted to partner with Dynamark. We just love the company. I've known Hank for a long time and love the support that they bring to each of their clients. We've discounted our rates through the Dynamark program to kind of help them grow. One thing that Kirk and I do is we gain the most by helping others, and I think that's been very visible in our history and how we got to where we are today. And that's really the calling that we share. It's not to, as I was alluding to earlier, to make $10 million and go on vacation per year. Those things would be great, but we're not playing the lottery here. We're helping companies grow, and that's how we grow. So you can go to the last slide there, Jonathan. We've been around for a long time. We've seen a lot of things, and to share personally, I mean, I've made at least every mistake in this industry you can make at least 3 times. So, through that, you have a unique learning advantage from doing that. And having been on the service provider side and working with so many different alarm companies, it's really given us a broad perspective, and we can really help people understand the challenges and show them how to get through those challenges. Sometimes it's just learning curves. Sometimes it's just, growth hurdles. Sometimes it's, starting from scratch. Those are all different things that we provide to our customers. I would like to take a few minutes and just answer questions. Can
you, this is Robert, this is Hank. I definitely want to open up the questions. Can you go back to the previous slide, Jonathan? I wanted to ask you, I'll start with the first question, if I may.
Sure.
You guys got a lot of resources available to the dealers who are listening, and to those in the future who may listen to this webinar and want to know more. In the center there, ladies and gentlemen, you'll notice there is the Connection Exchange and MacGuard. Do you guys split these? Is there a particular order in which one of you his expertise is different than others, or do you both cover all of these areas?
So, I mean, Kirk is probably our leading expert on anything to do with Medicare and Medicaid, but that's just because of his age. outside of that, and thank you very much, Hank, for the question. When I talked about how Kirk and I come together is, when I was out on my own, he's out on his own, we might have to call each other and say, hey, can you support this? Can you support that? Can you help me out here? By coming together, we've really been able to close that gap. There's very few things that we have to push out for. And we've got partners like Hank to help us with those things. So everything you see up there, and then, that's not an inclusive list. That's just kind of a broad scope of what we do. And if you sign up with us, you sign up with us. You get Robert, you get Kirk, you get everything we bring to the table, and our connections. So, there's not a, hey, you take this one, I take that one. We've had relationships where at different parts of that life cycle of that relationship, I'm more present with the customer than Kirk, just because it might be regulatory and compliance stuff. Maybe it's, on the manufacturing side or service platforms, and Kirk's got the knowledge there that is more relevant. So, but at the same time, we both stay engaged through the entire relationship. It's just some of us, sometimes I talk more, sometimes he talks more.
Right.
And, Hank, here's the other aspect, and Robert hit the nail on the head, right? Here's the other. I'm West Coast. I'm up in Portland, Oregon, and he's in South Carolina. We try not to do it geographically. I'm flying east all next week and Midwest to see a client, and Robert sometimes will go to California to see a client, right? So we don't do that, but we also believe that it's important that we blend our resources together for the betterment of the individual dealer, but the dealer doesn't pay twice for that, right? They pay one time, and he and I just split it, right? And we just worked that out. So you're really getting two experienced people for the price of one, but we each have our own area of expertise that we bring to the table.
That's great. Yeah, if I can add one thing to the reason why they're on this call today, and we had this, ladies and gentlemen. And first of all, thank you for those of you who took the time out to listen to this. I think it's important because I want to bring to the table for anyone who's either a Dynamark dealer or is not a Dynamark dealer, we open this up to the public because we want people to see the value that we care enough about alarm dealers. I have a 26 year experience in this industry, probably known both of these guys almost that long, and can tell you that I've owned an alarm company all by myself. I'm one of the executives and equity partners of this company, but I'm also an owner of my own company. And it's scary to be out there by yourself. I know how that feeling is. I think it's best said by Robert a few minutes ago when he said, look, or Kirk said it, where we're the chief outside officers. We're here on the outside being able to see the forest, and you're stuck looking at the trees. I think this is why we wanted to partner with these gentlemen, because it's not just you're going to get one or the other, you get the power of both of them. And we want to see everyone in this industry succeed, whether they're with Dynamark or not.
Yeah, thanks, Hank. And I think you nailed it. I think it's the best of all breeds brought together into one package to help dealers succeed.
So who's got questions? We're going to open it up. Jonathan is going to unlock the mute button. So if you are having a lot of traffic in the back, for those of you who've got a lot of noise, if you could mute unless you're asking a question. We're going to open this up for questions. So who's got a question out there?
They never heard back from us. I'm sitting back scratching my head going,
Kelly Clemens may have a question, but he's talking. I can hear him.
On the account.
So if you could, Jonathan, if you could mute Kelly, I think he's talking. I'm going to go ahead and let someone else speak. Go ahead, whoever that was. Go ahead and ask the question.
It's Mary. I was just wondering if we could have availability to the slides, because I was in the field mobile today, and I couldn't get the slides to pull up on my mobile device. So I was wondering if I could have a presentation sent to me, or if I could access that.
That would be up to these.
This is Kirk.
That would be up to these gentlemen.
Yeah, we are absolutely A-okay with that, Mary. And I'm at my desk computer, and I couldn't log on either, so we got something in common. So, yeah, we'd be happy to do that. Hank, you let us know after the call how that.
Right. Yep. Jonathan knows who Mary is, and Jonathan can make sure that he has the slide deck. Mary, we're also going to. I believe we're recording this. Jonathan, is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
So you'll be able to hear this on one of our, Jonathan, as you know, is the master of managing the website, so you'll be able to get access to that as well. I know that another question that probably will come up, and so I don't want to take anyone's question away, but what's the investment? You know, probably the question is, I like what I hear. I want to go ahead and use you guys. What's the next step? How do I go about doing that?
So next step is, to reach out to Kirk and I, and we'll, for everybody new that we're talking to, we like to spend a few, an hour, maybe 2 hours kind of understanding what your challenges are, what you're looking at. Our rates, I mean, there's a few different programs we work best when we're hired on a retainer. It gives you the most time with us and the most focus. We have done project work for people where the client said, listen, all I want to do right now is develop a new sales commission program for my sales staff and my support staff so that they can grow, but I don't have time to really break up my company at this minute and really think outside of that. So those are things that we can do. So it can be a la carte or the entire program.
Okay, good. Anyone else have questions out there for Kirk or for Robert? These guys are easy,
hey, this is Kirk. I think, Robert said this, and I don't know if everyone had a chance to hear this because there is a little bit of background noise. We want you to spend an hour with us, and we do that at no charge, right? We want to do that, right? And we do that telephonically, and you figure out if we're the right people to work with you, right? It's somewhat of an interview. You have to know that we're there to help you and support you, that there's no conflicts, and that what you say to us is confidential. We go under NDA, non-disclosure, so you feel comfortable that the information you're sharing with us stays with us and doesn't go outward. But we do that for an hour, and I think after that hour, then we come up with pricing predicated on what is needed. And then go from there, and then you approve it, and we move forward. So that's kind of next steps and how we think it works best.
Excellent.
Yeah, and one thing just to add to that is, a lot of people get nervous these days about agreement. We even see alarm companies, going out with no term agreement. We kind of operate the same way. We don't want to outstay our welcome. So although our typical agreements are 6-month agreements that renew, we all understand that when it's done, it's done. I had a company I was working with up until June. They ran into some hardship and needed to cut different areas. One of those areas was also external support. Our agreement didn't expire until this coming December, but there was no issue with us breaking that because we want to work with you long term, and we understand that at different times in life cycle of your business you have different needs. So we're completely flexible on that, and we do what we can to help you grow and support you along the way.
Let me add one thing to what you guys are offering. As both Robert and Kirk know this about me, back in the days of first ADT, then over to Monotronics, I decided I would go on my own and start a training company called American Power Training, where I would fly in and train, work with dealers. A little bit different than what they do now. I can assure you that having someone come in and coach and train and guide you by the hand and help you with two gentlemen that combined experience has got to be at least, what, gentlemen, 100 years, maybe? That's a joke, okay. But it's darn near close. These two gentlemen have such experience, and myself as well, probably do get close to 100, that we can certainly are here to help you. And that's why I wanted them to join the Dynamark Premier Provider Relationship, because we were very selective of who we allowed to come in to our group to help our dealers, and those outside. But we wanted to release this and let people know this is going to be made available. I would tell you that 91% of the dealers that I ever trained grew, and now I measured it slightly differently, but if you measured it in the dollar value, if you were to turn that into a dollar value, it was at least $200,000 or more in business, generated revenue over the course of a year, from one year to the next, over $200,000. That's not chump change. That's increased revenue, substantial. There were no guarantees I made, but I measured it backwards, and over a 2.5-year period, it was 91% of the dealers grow. Training does help, and I can assure you these two gentlemen are the best of the best.
Thanks, Hank. I appreciate that.
Thanks. Nice to hear you say that. Thank you.
So gentlemen and ladies, with that said, I would encourage you, can you go to the next slide, Jonathan, that last slide? I would have you guys take a look at their names, their telephone numbers, ways to reach them. We're going to have this slide made available to those who registered for this. We'll shoot this information out so everyone can have access to take a look at it. Once again, let them know if you are a Dynamark dealer listening, let them know, or at least let them know that you heard it from the Dynamark DynaTrain training series. If there's no other questions, anybody, one last try? Any questions at all? Any questions at all? Going once, twice. I want to thank everyone who took the time out today to listen. I want to thank Mr. Robert Few and Mr. Kirk McDowell for joining us today. And I want to encourage you guys to take advantage of these gentlemen. They know what they're talking about. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you on the next DynaTrain.
Thanks. Thanks, Nate.